In this video, I'm gonna try to debunk or at least question 4 most famous philosophical cases against suicide. In this video, I talk about why suicide can be okay only when there are serious reasons, because I believe that, as David Hume wrote, no man ever threw away life while it was worth keeping. For such is our natural horror of death that small motifs will never be able to reconcile us to it. I'm not trying to make everyone do it. If your life is good, there is no reason to end it earlier, even though some thinkers did try to reconcile others to it without serious reasons. My point is simple. Death is a neutral state. You cannot feel pain when you're dead, neither can you feel the pleasure. Life, from the other hand, can be happy or unhappy. If your life is happy, it's not worth trading it for a neutral state. If your life is unhappy, then a deal with the death becomes a good deal for you. In other words, if you're happy, it doesn't make sense to swap your life for nothing. But if your life is miserable, death becomes a better deal. My goal here is to make suicide a legal option for people who are in so much pain, physically or mentally, that their lives become unbearable. So keep in mind, we're talking about suicide as something driven only by serious reasons. I've already made a video on that topic, and if you're interested, it gotta be somewhere out here. But today I'm going to try a different approach, so stay with me. As far as I know, suicide is considered a crime only by the adherents of monotheistic, specifically Judaic religions. Why is that, you might ask? Well, life is a gift from God, and only the giver has the right to take it away. Seen here as a violation of God's will. In the book of Genesis, it is said, Panta kala lian, all things are very good. In the biblical account of creation, God speaks these words as he surveys everything he has made. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. So God gave us a good life, and giving it up would be rude to him. The same as it would be rude when someone who loves you was trying to do you a big favor or give you a present, but you just reject it. The person definitely will be disappointed. There are a few things to say here. First of all, we can ask, if everything is very good, then why everything is not very good? I mean, it's easy to say that everything is good, but why do people have cancer, for example? Why do people have clinical depression, extreme cases of anxiety disorder, or Alzheimer's disease? Why did God allow such horrible things to exist? And not only this, how dare he was to call these things very good? There are a lot of reasons to doubt the existence of God, or at least an omnibenevolent God, based on the fact of human and non-human suffering. And if there are reasons to doubt God, there are reasons to doubt the criminal status of a suicide. Secondly, why did God make suicide possible if he doesn't want us to do it? Some people say God gave us free will, the choice between good and evil, so our actions are sincere. So yeah, it is better to do evil things sincerely than doing only good just because God is making us do it, isn't it? Well, answer me the next question. Is there free will in heaven? If yes, then why couldn't God make the heaven on earth? I mean, if people can have free will and still only do good, why isn't it like that everywhere, not only in heaven? If that's impossible, then does it mean that there is no free will in heaven? And if there is no free will there, then what? Are people just forced to be good? If so, it's not really sincere. And finally, I don't like the idea of supposing that specific God exists. Even though philosophers like David Hume made brilliant, perhaps the best point to make suicide a legal option when there are serious reasons to it by supposing that God exists. In his essay of suicide, Hume doesn't doubt the existence of an omnibenevolent God. He uses their own logic, saying, okay, look, let's say I agree that this specific God exists, but I'm going to prove to you that even then, suicide is not a crime. It's a brilliant stillmaning Hume does, but what I'm trying to say is that we don't even have to do this. If you want me to believe your statement, prove it to me. If it's not proven, then we don't even have to act like it is. For example, if I tell you there's a tiny invisible dragon living in my backpack, you don't have to start acting like it's true. Until I show you the dragon, the most logical things for you to do is to completely ignore its existence, or in other words, be aware of its non-existence. So if we put all 3 points together, suffering, the ability to commit suicide, and the doubt that God exists, I think we have a very strong case that suicide isn't a crime. The first 2 points show that even if God is real, He gave us both a reason to do it and the power to do it. And the third point shows that we don't have to follow rules for a God we aren't even sure exist. Just like we don't have to be scared just because I said there is a tiny invisible dragon in my backpack. In Book 5 of Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle writes, "The law does not expressly permit suicide, and what it does not expressly permit, it forbids. He who in a state of passion voluntarily kills himself does this in contravention of the right rule of life, and this the law does not allow. He therefore acts unjustly." Then he explains who is actually being hurt by this. Towards whom? Surely towards the state, not towards himself. This is also the reason why the state punishes. A certain loss of civil rights is attached to the person who destroys himself on the ground that he is treating the state unjustly. Aristotle believed that since we are citizens of a state, killing ourselves harms others because we stop being useful to society. To him, a person who commits suicide is like a deserter leaving their posts. But do we really harm others by dying? I don't think so, and of course there is no better man than David Hume to explain it to us. A man who retires from life does no harm to society. He only ceases to do good, which, if it be an injury, is of the lowest kind. Just as Aristotle, Hume thought that all our obligations to do good to society seem to imply something reciprocal. I receive benefits of society and therefore ought to promote its interests. But when I withdraw myself altogether from society, can I be bound any longer? Moreover, I don't think I'm obligated to provide a small benefit to others at the expense of my own profound misery. Remember, we agreed that no one kills themselves when things are going great. In this case, it makes perfect sense to stop your suffering even if it costs society some minor benefit. What Aristotle clearly didn't see is that in many cases, my death not only does no harm, but even benefits society. I could get sick so desperate that I'm no longer useful. I'd just be a burden on everyone, taking their money and energy without being able to give anything in return. In the state of sickness, I can hinder some person from being much more useful to society. In situations like this, my death is actually better for society than being forced, as Aristotle wrote, by the law to keep living. There are many more examples to demonstrate that suicide can benefit society. Imagine I am captured soldier, I have a secret, and if enemy finds it out, thousands of people will die. I know that if they torture me, I will break and talk. So, using Aristotle's own logic, wouldn't it be better to kill myself to save a thousand's lives? To sum up, Aristotle missed 2 points. First, that dying doesn't necessarily harm others, and second, that a person's death can actually be the most beneficial thing a person can do for their community. Immanuel Kant, 18th century German philosopher, in his groundwork of the Metaphysics of Morals, tried to convince his readers that suicide is morally and logically wrong. And this is the most fun for me, and for this reason is the most difficult to deal with. Here is the key passage where Kant explains why you cannot use yourself as a tool to end your pain. If he destroys himself in order to escape from painful circumstances, He uses a person merely as a mean to maintain a tolerable condition up to the end of life. But a man is not a thing, that is to say, something which can be used merely as means, but must in all his actions be always considered as an end in himself. For Immanuel Kant, human life is of the highest worth. Ending it to stop the pain is like throwing away gold just to get some copper in return. To question this view, we might ask Immanuel Kant, why is that our life is of the highest worth? What I'm asking is, what makes our life untouchable even when we're facing the most extreme pain? Why our life is so sacred? But here is where the argument feels most heavy. Kant essentially tells us that we are not the owners of our lives, but rather their guardians, and we have no right to damage the container no matter how much it hurts. This leads to a disturbing conclusion. In Kant's world, your suffering is irrelevant compared to your duty. To me, avoiding pain is better than enduring it when we talk about severe pain, of course. If life becomes nothing but agony, it's nonsense to claim that I value a painful existence more than no existence at all. It's like saying I'd rather have a rotten apple than no apple. Camus opened his essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, with a sentence that became a manifesto of existentialism. There is but one truly serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide. Judging whether life is or is not worth living amounts to providing the answer to the fundamental question of philosophy. Camus' argument is built around the concept of the absurd. It is the conflict between our longing for meaning and the unreasonable silence of the world. To Camus, suicide is a surrender, an act of evasion. It's an attempt to fix the problem of the absurd by eliminating one side of the equation. Camus offers his way to face the absurdity, refuse the leap of faith, refuse self-destruction, and choose to live in the full, constant glare of the absurdity. That is what he calls revolt. Camus says something that seems odd at first. Suicide is an act of acceptance. Acceptance of what? That your opponent, the world, is stronger than you. Suicide is acceptance at its extreme. Why? Because by ending your life, you effectively agree that the world is more powerful than you are and that you cannot withstand its absurdity. You're telling the world, fine, you win. I cannot live under these conditions. To Camus, this is the ultimate defeat. And this is exactly what I can probably never forgive Camus for. His belief in the individual's strengths in the face of the world. I find Camus' position to be naive. First of all, I believe that the world is far more formidable opponent than I am. To think that we have the power to fight back is nothing more than a fantasy for those who never truly suffered. To Camus, choosing not to fight the absurd is a surrender, but let's bring his theory into the ring. If I, a man with zero boxing experience, refuse match against Mike Tyson, am I evading life or am I simply acknowledging a brutal asymmetry of power? There is a thin line between heroic revolt and delusional pride. Recognizing your own powerlessness isn't a defeat, it's an act of intellectual honesty that no beautiful theory can ever replace. Secondly, we don't choose whether to suffer or not. It's not something we can juggle like a circus clown or pick through like dishes in a cafeteria. When suffering reaches the point where life becomes unbearable, we cannot just stop hurting at will and decide to be happy. Look at this famous quote from Myth of Sisyphus. The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. No, it's not. This claim assumes that we are like machines with no biological limits, as if there is no end to the suffering we can bear. We are biological beings, not gods or robots. Our nature has limits. Our nervous system has a breaking point. You cannot just hit a revolt button and ignore the pain when it becomes more than you can bear. This is exactly why the famous mantra, one must imagine Sisyphus happy, ultimately falls apart. What does it even mean to imagine him happy. Happiness isn't something Sisyphus can simply switch on. Sure, he can contribute to his own well being, but that's as far as it goes. If the circumstances are stacked against him as a biologically finite being, he simply reaches a point where there's nothing left to be done. Some might call my perspective pessimistic or even depressing, but I see it as a philosophy of acceptance, whereas Camus preaches a revolt against the impossible. Stoicism, for instance, was built on the discipline of distinguishing between what is in our power and what is not, focusing only on what we can control and accepting everything we cannot. I can imagine Sisyphus being happy, no doubt about it, but imagining someone happy does not automatically make them feel that way. It may even produce the opposite effect. Instead of accepting your pain, we feel even more diminished, trapped by the obligation to be happy. So that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed this video, and if you do, you know what to do.